In the studio with me is Fritz Moses, a research analyst with the Institute of Energy Security. Good afternoon to you and welcome.
Good afternoon, Francisca.
We're grateful that you found time to join us. I heard the traffic was bad.
Yes, I had to rush in.
That's too bad, but we appreciate the urgency with which you treated this. Now, you came in time to hear some of his submissions. The concern that IES, your group, has raised has been with transparency and the matters concerning the liquidity of GRIDCO. Having heard him, what is your reaction to that?
All right. Once again, thank you for the opportunity. I think one thing we realize is that Ebenezer Mankwa has agreed, or has accepted the fact that GRIDCO itself is facing some challenges, and has alluded to some of the things that we've mentioned in some of our releases. What he has also done is also to make us know that truly, indeed, there are solutions to those challenges, but then those solutions are prevented from coming on board because of the lack of financial capability of GRIDCO itself. And so those are very key important things that must be done. You have to accept that these are the challenges and these are the ways to go about it.
So it's satisfactory?
We agree with them that, yes, these are the issues that GRIDCO has been facing with transmission lines, their own machines, their own supply points, their own, these are things that we've been speaking about for years now, months now, weeks now. And if they are currently alluding to the fact that they are existing, then that's good. We think that their efforts in trying to upgrade the systems, as they have mentioned, we have been told some transmission lines of about 330 kVA, some are also 161 kVA and all that are being put in place to ensure that there's efficiency in the delivery of power from the producers to the distributors. I think those are essential things that must be done. Again, these are things that are going on, but then again, it doesn't mean that the solutions or the problems we are facing currently would fully be resolved. And so going forward, I believe that they will have, the cash waterfall system is in place to ensure that there's the comfortable or the easy distribution of resources generated from the power sector to the various agencies or institutions that are in play.
Okay. I'll come back to you in a bit, but we have on the phone lines John Jinapor, ranking member of the Mines and Energy Committee. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Jinapor, and thanks for speaking to us. We've just spoken to GRIDCO, and they are assuring that there is no dumsor, for instance. They've explained that there are certain challenges, transmission and distribution challenges, as well as they concede to their cash flow difficulty as being responsible for the recent power outages. Do you find that satisfactory?
Very unfortunate. What do they mean by there's no dumsor when people's lives are off? Sometimes I think that people should be honest. People should learn to say the truth. There's erratic power supply, and that is dumsor. But when you don't have power and your lights are off, that's what we call in our local parlance as dumsor. Are the lights going off and on or not? Are the lights and the electricity supply in an erratic situation or not? They should admit that there's a problem, that the power supply situation is nothing to write home about, that is not good, and that they will do something about it. But people want reliable supply of power. So if the power is not available, and yet you come to sit here and pretend as if everything is all right, then you are being deceptive. You are not being honest with the people of Ghana. GRIDCO's finances is in a bad state. That is no news. Over the past 4 years, they have been struggling to extend that sometimes even paying salaries is a challenge for them. So everybody knows that GRIDCO has a major problem when it comes to their finances, and that they are not able to maintain the power lines, they are not able to maintain the grid, they are not able to replace obsolete equipment, and so we are seeing the effects of it. So we better start doing something about it now, rather than pretending as if everything is all right.
What would you say, what do you propose can be done? For instance, they've talked about a number of projects underway and some expectant projects that can address the concerns of transmission. The money, I spoke to Mr. Mankwa, and he's not very clear on the money as to, they're looking forward to getting some money from government, but he's not very clear as to the details of it. But
so government must
they
come
seem,
clear.
they seem to have a plan.
Government must come clear. Government must support GRIDCO. Because it is government that has brought GRIDCO to its current state. It is because of the politics, that is why GRIDCO is on its knees. So government itself.
When you say it's because of the politics, that's why GRIDCO is on its knees. What do you mean, sir?
Because they keep changing their tariff structure. They don't get what is due them, and they are politicizing the whole activities of GRIDCO. And once you do that, and they don't get the revenue that is required for investments, upgrading, and maintenance of their grid system, you are going to have this erratic power supply that we are having today. It was avoidable. We could have avoided it.
Mr. Jinapor, you seem convinced that this is a dumsor situation, as is popularly called. But GRIDCO is saying that their current capacity exceeds the peak demand. And so it's a problem. It's a problem that can be fixed and can be averted.
So fix it. People want power. They are not interested in excuses. The excuses is getting too much. For so many weeks and months, they keep giving excuses. You don't work at GRIDCO. You don't pay you at GRIDCO. But you pay your water bills, you pay your electricity bills. So you want regular flow of water and regular supply of electricity. You're not interested in unnecessary stories, fairy tales, and all kinds of, we have enough capacity. If you have enough capacity, supply the power. If you have enough capacity, why are you putting people through load shedding? Why are you putting people through such outages? It doesn't make sense. You are not a technician. All you want is that when you get home and you switch your lights on, you have reliable supply of electricity. It's not your duty to even be going around checking equipment. That is their job. And if they cannot do it, health must roll. It means that incompetent people are managing the affairs of GRIDCO. It's as simple as that.
What's the Mines and Energy Committee's position on the current power situation, the incessant supply in power?
We are meeting GRIDCO. We are meeting GRIDCO, I think, in a couple of days. We'll be very firm on all these things. We'll take it up with them. And we'll meet the ministry as well. But clearly, we are going through erratic power supply, and something must be done about it.
Very well. We'll leave it here. Thank you so much. That's John Jinapor. He's the ranking member for the Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament. Back to the studio with Fritz Moses. Fritz, now I want us to get into this accountability issue that you raised, similar to what Mr. Jinapor is alluding to. What is it that you believe government is not being accountable for with regard to the power situation?
Okay, so like I stated earlier, there are challenges, and these challenges didn't just come about some few days or weeks ago. They have been in existence for years. In November, we made an analysis of the transmission losses that GRIDCO incurs, and we looked at it for the past 10 years, how that has been. And the transmission losses usually would come about, particularly, basically on technical issues. If there are technical, disadvantages in the system, the supply chain, then you'd have those losses. And those losses, there's an allowable benchmark by PURC. That's about 3.5% of the power that's collected from the various producers and submitted or transferred to the distributors. So about 3.5% of that is allowable by PURC to be lost. But then in the event where you are losing more than that, the excess of that becomes the cost to GRIDCO itself. And so for the past 10 years, we've seen that increase. I think from 2000 and let me get the figures from here. We have been seeing this. It's not a new thing actually. So from 2009, it was about 3.8. That's roughly around 3.5, still the benchmark. But then as at 2016, to 4.4. From 2016 to 2019, it rose to about 4.7. That means 1.2% of the power that had been generated from the IPPs had become cost to GRIDCO without even it being used or anything. It had become cost because it was lost. And this goes to tell the fact that over the period, the transmission or the amount of energy or power that's been transmitted had increased. We see that our installed capacity has increased. Dependable capacity is also increasing. Then you can also see a high rise in the peak demand from about 2006 to currently around 3,090 per megawatt.
The initial problem, so what's the cure to that? The initial problem you explained.
So the problem had already been existed, and the issue, what should have been done in the previous administration was to upgrade the systems. Now, it would surprise you to know that we are currently even using about as old as more than 40-year equipment still in GRIDCO. Equipment that we purchased somewhere in 1963 still have been used in GRIDCO's operations. And we don't think these are things that GRIDCO itself should take it to light, and the government itself must look down on. I mean, you've seen that there have been periods where GRIDCO has been making profits in their productions or in their activities. But then we've not seen that commensurate with profits being channeled into some of these most important things. They know which areas they need to work on, and they don't know what technical equipment they need to get. And again, we've not seen that commitment. And we don't know whether it's the
political... And it comes down to money, really.
Exactly.
And this is the same GRIDCO that, for want of a better expression, is cash-strapped.
Exactly.
And they are waiting on government. So you do a breakdown of the problem as financial, as technical. You've talked about the technical bit and commercial. The financial, he alludes to it, but if you want to throw more light on that, and then you can get into the commercial aspects.
Okay, so our analysis just was basically on the transmission losses, essentially. Okay. So in 2009, we were making about 3.8% of transmission losses, having about 0.3 being the cost to GRIDCO. When we add all of those figures from the previous years, from 2007 to 2019, from about 3.5 to currently around 4.7% being lost, GRIDCO had lost over $150 million to just transmission losses alone. So the losses that would incur from their transmitting of power, just the fact that power is moving from the IPPs or the NAMs to ECG, just that movement alone cost GRIDCO about $150 million that they have to pay, and they haven't even paid yet. This is why you hear some of the IPPs complain late last year. These are the issues that have been existing. Now, we've seen this is in response to the fact that the generation of the demand for both the demand and supply for power has been increasing. And so essentially there will be an extra load on the existing infrastructure that GRIDCO relies on. And so you would see all of these things rise up and all of these costs being incurred. And aside that, the transmission losses only, we also have the cost that ECG owns to GRIDCO. And ECG will always complain that they're unable to get with the customers to pay up our debt to them so that they can also pay GRIDCO. And so essentially it becomes a problem that exists in the entire value chain. And so ECG, customers, myself and you and other Ghanaians would owe ECG. We would not pay up.
It becomes cyclical.
Exactly. ECG would then also owe GRIDCO because they can't pay them the power that they have been able to transmit to them. And GRIDCO itself also would owe the IPPs. And we know that ECG has been paying about only 40% of its debt per month owed to GRIDCO. And if you are paying 40% and 60% is not coming in, that means we are going to continually incur costs as the months roll by. And that has been the issue with GRIDCO and its operations with ECG and in the entire value chain. And we think that, yes, to ensure efficiency in the system, government must make that commitment that we would ensure. I mean, we didn't see that in the budget that was read some few weeks back. We didn't see that the government is making that substantial investment. What we have seen is a reiteration of what had already been done or what was being done last year. So we are not seeing any new thing. And so the renewal or the upgrading of the transmission lines that we are seeing from Kumasi to Kintampo, Accra to Amala, Achimota to Mala, all of those things were things that were happening only from last year.
So they won't solve the problem.
It's just a continuation. So if all those things come on stream, yes, it would make the delivery of power in Accra, in Kumasi. Of course, people heard that the Ameri plant will be moved to Kumasi. It would help in ensuring that situation is solved a bit. But then it wouldn't, do away with all the challenges that the sector is continuing to face. And because we are seeing that the demand is also rising, the peak demand is rising, it would still continue to put that pressure on the delivery infrastructure.
Let's itemize the expectations from government.
Yes. So essentially, government should make that commitment that it would make that necessary investment, aside what has already been done by GRIDCO itself and other government agencies or other institutions in the value chain, to ensure that there is efficiency in power delivery. Because if the power that has been produced by the IPPs are being channeled to reach the consumers or the customers directly without that much being lost, then we can save costs and ensure that also ECG is empowered to collect revenue. I mean, there should be There should be innovative, means to collect revenue from Ghanaians by ECG. So
I want to ask you a question about the inefficiencies. And it's a rhetorical question. At whose cost are these inefficiencies happening?
Essentially to the government. And if the government that because if you're not able to deliver power to Ghanaians and there are inefficiencies in the system, at the end of the day, they'll blame the government. That's why you would hear Honorable saying that it's the inefficiency of some appointees in GRIDCO and that if they're incompetent. At the end of the day, it goes back to the government, that the government is not being forthright with Ghanaians. So you should make them do what's right. And the good will come to you again. If you don't,
okay, and yes. not to cut you, but my producer just whispered into my ear or spoke into my ear that we've just lost power here in our studio, and we are on a backup system right now. So that will be some of. Imagine if the whole place turned dark. Thankfully, we have a backup system. But so the impact really is what is putting people in this state, and it's legitimate state of apprehension that dumsor is returning. Because today, for instance, in my house, it happened twice already before I got to the office. And if what you're saying is that this problem has existed for a long time, and government, you talk about, for instance, the transmission losses. It gets, I'm sure consumers will be tired of hearing all of these explanations. I've asked Mr. Amankwa about a load shedding timetable or schedule. They are going to have that conversation with ECG. We don't know how long that will take. But really, what happens to the consumer? Who has the consumer's interest? Because while these conversations are being had, discussions about new projects, which you say are some of our ongoing projects to resolve the problem, are underway, consumers will be experiencing the challenge. For instance, we had the power go off here. Yeah. Who's got the consumer's interest? Yes.
So, the power going off here, it's actually not new, because I've been to say just some other houses have experienced the same thing. And that's exactly what IES is doing. That's what we are doing. That we are calling on them. These are things that they know they know before they happen. So if something like of a sort would happen, you should be able to inform the consumers. Let them know that within these periods, this will happen, and so you should be able to plan your life accordingly. But then if you don't, and you are just in your house and the lights goes off, it would affect your productivity. I don't think that's right. That's why we don't understand why it's difficult for them. So it seems for ECG and GRIDCO itself to come out with a timetable of a sort to ensure that there's that reliability of power and the knowledge of when it will be available and not. To help people plan and organize their lives. Really. We don't know why they wouldn't do that, because they keep giving us excuses that these are the things that they are doing to solve the situation, but it doesn't get. We don't see the results yet. We have heard the CEO of GRIDCO come out to say that for the next few months we should expect power cuts or intermittent power cuts as we go along. To backtrace, that should be a timetable. Something should inform us that these periods of times we wouldn't be having power. We shouldn't just be sitting aloof saying that and then experiencing lights out and thinking it's normal or it's something that we have to live with. If you know the times or the periods within which you would go off, you would be able to plan adequately. And that's why IES is doing. Several people are also speaking and calling on the appropriate authorities to ensure that the consumers are aware of what is happening and are able to plan adequately in preparation for whatever that may happen. Because the consumer itself may not be aware of the operations that's going on, may not be in the know of what faults exist in their meters, in their transformers, or in the transmission lines that leads to their communities or not. But the agencies or institutions that have the resources are aware of them. So they should be able to make that information known to the consumers to plan their life adequately. Very well. What's your take on the explanation he gave about the situation in Kumasi, which we understand is worse than what is happening here in Accra? What's your take on that? Yes, yes. The northern power is delivered primarily through Kumasi, and that puts a lot of pressure on Kumasi. Because so that, for instance, not to catch you, for instance, when we are told that
the minimum requirement or the minimum level for water in the dam has gone down because rains were not adequate. Are these starting to sound like excuses?
Well, they actually affect power delivery in a sense. But as I also stated, there are ways. I mean, we don't always have all the power producing IPPs on board. We don't always have all the plants producing power. And so if you can, the Dam Authority, the Akosombo, VRA, they always have a schedule for each day, the amount or the level of water that's available for power production. They always know all of these things. I mean, each day they know what's the level. And so if it keeps decreasing, you should know. They will be able to tell that it would decrease and it would affect the delivery of power. And so at that moment, what you do is you bring on stream the other plants that are lying idle. I mean, currently you have about, I think, Amandi also are lying idle. We can't always have all of them, running at a go. And so when you realize that these are the situations that's happening, you should be able to augment it with the other plants that are idle, unless they have particular reasons that they may explain later on. But we don't get it.
Okay. I have a message here from Kweku Bentil from Pram Pram. He says, can you imagine how we are being lied to? Just tell us there's no power. And you're beating about the bush. Mahama Dumsor Nanafui from Poma says, though we were told that the power we have as a country can even be supplied to other countries, what cra is this? Mami Kunedu says, Ghanaians should calm down. The president is working. We shouldn't panic. I believe some people are causing all these outages to spoil the president's record. Okay, this one has no name. Says, you said you wanted 4 more. There you have it. Keep quiet and suffer. Well, obviously, people are not happy about this. But so, and this is a question that maybe is not for you, but how should people then be planning their lives? Because we are now going to wait for the ECG and GRIDCO to discuss this plan or this schedule, which people are requesting for. And what should people be doing in that meantime?
For now, that's the only thing we can do. I mean, we can keep it. But I mean, it seems there's a political side to all of these things that are happening, because some of the workers at GRIDCO complain to us that they are unable to even complain when they find problems that are affecting their delivery. I mean, the entire value chain or the system that they use there. Because in the event where you are going to complain about that something is happening, or you find a fault with what's happening, you may be tagged as being antagonistic. Internally, exactly.
Really?
You may be tagged as being antagonistic of the operations of the management. And so some technicians are forced to keep silent even when they find some of these situations. And so when Ghanaians are saying it's a political effect that's being experienced currently, it may, but then these are what we are hearing, that some of these things are happening there. For you, the consumers, we may have to continue to wait for them to, because they know what's happening. They are in control of the systems. They are in control of the value chain. They don't know what's happening, and so they can tell us adequately and make us plan as we need to for any exigencies that may happen in the value chain.
With your extensive research into the power situation, and you explain that it's not something that's just happening, and this is this is more than a 10-year problem. Exactly. With these solutions that we're being given, seeming temporary, what really will it take to solve this problem for once? Okay,
so I think for Ghana, we have a very robust. We are generating power as we need and as we want. That's why you may hear that we have excess capacity on all of that. Mm-hmm. That's why the argument of dumsor is kind of tricky around this time, because we're having a lot to generate. The problem has been with the distribution and the collection of revenue from that. And so, as I stated earlier, that you should be able to find innovative ways or means for ECG to get the revenue that it needs. Because if ECG is able to collect all the revenues that customers owe them, and they're able to pay up most of the debts that they owed, and also, of course, pay up GRIDCO, who can essentially also maintain the facilities that they have. And some of the challenges that causes some of these outages is because there are shrubs or trees that have overgrown some of the transmission lines and causing some of the power lines to trip and all of that. So if ECG can generate revenue innovatively, that's one way. Again, we should also look at, even the worst of it all is the distribution losses that's been incurred by ECG. About 24% on average terms in the last 10 years of power is being lost by ECG. I mean, that's too much. That's about a quarter of the whole power that's been delivered from GRIDCO that's been lost. And this also costs to ECG that they must also pay. And their paying of that will come from consumers. And one of the largest consumers is also the government. And so if government institutions, schools are
Government institutions also owe.
Oh, yes. Most government institutions don't actually pay. So it's cost to the government itself. Ministries, some schools don't pay, some agencies don't pay, and all that. And so these are costs that will keep on rising, that will keep on being incurred. So there should be innovative ways to collect revenues from ECG. Also for GRIDCO and ECG itself also to invest in their infrastructure, because you can't continue to take up revenue and take up the investment and not see it being invested in the areas that will ensure efficiency in the delivery of power.
Okay, let me get some messages from Facebook. Abu Tankama says, Ashauman is too bad. Liars. Rich Atobosomtre says, great composure, apt presentation. Thank you. I'll go. I have an understanding from my producer, Henry, that there's something happening in Parliament. So we were trying to get our parliamentary correspondent, but I think the phone lines are failing on us. So let me just say what we have from our reporter there. It says the fourth report of the Appointments Committee of the Minister of Finance designate will be considered. Speakers are angry over failure of two ministers of state to show up in Parliament to answer questions in their sector. And the final thing is what? Approval from various sums for some ministries and government agencies. So that's the latest in Parliament. We were hoping to quickly get, oh, okay, great. I'm told that we have Abdullah on the phone. This is the updates from Parliament. Let's speak to Abdullah now. Abdullah, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Francisca.
Give us the details.
All right, so let me just begin from the breaking news for the day. Parliament has just unanimously approved the fourth report of the Appointments Committee, which vetted Ken Okorie-Attah to be the country's minister-designate for finance. So I can confirm that he has just been approved after the motion was moved by the majority chief whip, Frank Anodombre, was supported by the minority leader, Haruna Edinsi, who argued that despite the fact that some of the answers given by the minister-designate during his session was unsatisfactory, they would still go ahead and approve his position as the minister-designate for finance. Indeed, the report captures some of the questions which was put to him, which includes a justification for the resubmission of the Japan transaction to Parliament. It also captures the amount of money spent on the financial sector cleanup exercise. It also captures the status of Ghana's current total debt. If you remember, this particular issue has been a very contentious matter as far as parliamentary business is concerned. The minister-designate also answered questions on the challenges in the implementation of the revenue capping policy and the improving of the value for money assessment regime of the Nanado-led administration. Indeed, he also answered questions on the controversial LGBT issue and certain conditionalities that we were told to put on some of the loans that would be borrowed Ghana from the international market. But I can confirm that despite these challenges, the Appointments Committee has still gone ahead to move a motion for the adoption of the report, which has unanimously confirmed Ken Okorie-Attah as the Minister Designate for Finance.
Okay, that's the latest from Parliament, brought to you by my colleague Abdallah Mohammed. Thank you so very much. We're out of time here in the studio, but I want to say a big thank you to Fritz Moses. He's with the Institute of Energy Security. He's a research analyst. Thank you, Fritz, for making time. Yes, we're also grateful to John Jinapor, Ranking Member for the Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament. And we also spoke to Ebenezer Mankwa, Corporate Communications Manager for GRIDCO. Thank you very much. This has been Good Afternoon, Ghana, with me, Francisca Kakwa-Forson.